Hello, welcome, and joining me today, I'm very excited. We have got Roger Martin-Fagg. Roger, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So the reason I'm particularly excited is that I'm part of a group, Vistage, and we get guest speakers. And Roger, I've been presented to by Roger a number of times. And the last time I found particularly inspiring because we were talking about the future of the economy. So hopefully you're going to get the same inspiration today. So Roger, just before we go, just give me a bit of background about you and what you do.
Well, I'm a behavioural economist. I started my career in New Zealand in the Treasury and came back to the UK, worked in airline planning, British Airways, and I started teaching at a local tech college because I needed the money. And then I was headhunted a few years later to join Henley Business School. And so there for 20 odd years, I taught economics to people in big corporates. You name Tesco, Sainsbury's, Lloyds Bank, all that lot have been my clients. And I went freelance 14 years ago now. And my mission is to educate people on how the economy really works, not what the media tell them.
I think that's what's really interesting for me is, albeit I've run my company for over 12 years now, is that I've never really got into analysing the bigger picture. It's all been very much on that micro level. And what I found really great from the perspective of listening to you is it opens your eyes and mind. And I've never been a fan of the media and reading newspapers. And that's why I think this is a really important conversation for not only for everyone, but for the people that we're working with, particularly on that business owner level. So where do you currently see the state of the economy?
If you look across the range of indicators, I've got a few favourite indicators. The most favourite is every month the Bank of England publishes detail on the change in household bank accounts. Literally by how much have bank deposits held by households gone up. And in the last 4 months, there's been a real improvement. Last year was terrible, but this year, it's fair to say the majority of households do now have spending power. So we are on the point of a substantial improvement in economic growth over the next 18 months, which is actually what the new government is banking on if you look at their economic policy. So if you think of economic cycles, we've had that post-COVID, post-end of lockdown, big inflationary boom. That's now dissipated. So everything has got back to normal. And so I expect, as I've said, a significant improvement in the latter half of this year.
Right. And that, in terms of like the consumer confidence, where is that at the moment?
Consumer confidence is improving. Obviously, when you've got an election with all the rubbish that we see in the election campaign, people are saying, well, for example, I've heard that if Labour get in, I'm going to be taxed to death and other rubbish remarks. I think once the election's over, then business households have got line of sight. There won't be any more leadership squabbles. And I seriously expect significant upturn. If you think in terms of cycle, we're at the bottom and the next way is up, which is really important. You know, we were talking about the housing market. House prices in real terms are cheaper than they've been for... Well, the average house price today is the same as it was in 2003. And you hear on the news that affordability shot, the rest of it. If you actually look at it, affordability today is better than it was in 2003. And there'll be many people who remember 2003 house prices kept going up on to 2008. And I expect that to happen this time. So this is really the best time to invest. The best time to invest is at the start of an economic upturn.
And is that from a personal perspective, as well as if you were building your business?
Well, I think from a personal perspective, it depends. You know, if you're looking to buy a house and you've seen a house you can just afford, the time is now. press the button. A lot of people are saying, oh, well, I'm going to hold back because interest rates are going to go down. They might go down 0.5% over the next year, but they won't go down by more. We're back. The interest rates today at 5.25% are where they sit. People have been used to this 1% and 2%. Totally abnormal. Not going to come back again.
So in terms of that interest rate, because that is very commonly said, people who wouldn't normally be talking about interest rates, and it is all, oh, it's going to drop, and so people are waiting for that, or they're advising getting a variable rate. So after the conversation and the presentation from Roger last time, I'm in the process of buying a house, so let's see how that goes. But one of the things we're chatting about with the mortgage advisors is about those interest rates. So why do you see it being that it's not going to be as big a drop as maybe what the common consensus is?
Okay, well, it's a bit complicated, this, but one of the reasons why there's not going to be a big drop is the Bank of England is unwinding all the support it put in during COVID. And the way it unwinds support is that it actually sells the 10-year government bonds that it holds. It sells them into the market, and insurance companies, pension funds buy them. But if the supply of new bonds comes into the market at a higher level, then the price of bonds in the market goes down, which means the yield, and it's that yield which determines a 5-year mortgage fix, will go up. And that's what economists like me are looking at. And I reckon, in terms of your fixed rate mortgage, the best it will go down from now is 0.5%. It won't go lower than that.
So what would your advice be if someone was looking at, if you were advising me, which you kind of have been before this conversation, what would you say in terms of that mortgage? What would you go for?
I would actually now go for a fix. The market's very competitive. You can probably get, depends on your deposit, but you can probably get a 3-5 year fix for around 4.4, somewhere around there. And the inflation rate over the next few years isn't going to be 2, it's going to be near 3.5. So in real terms, 1.5%, it's not a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but it isn't, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
It's a good time to press the button. And I think a lot of people will. And if you don't do it now, in a year and a half from now, the average house price will be 5-6% higher.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. And then for some of the clients that we're working with, so the majority of 80% of our business, as well as working with teams and NHS and other healthcare providers, is with people that run their own businesses. They might be between, say, 3 and 10 staff. What's your advice for those people? Because the market that we're in, and albeit we sell equipment, it's really how do we help them as a business? How do we help the business leaders? What's your advice if they're looking to invest in, whether it is recruitment or if it's into the technology that we're selling?
Okay, well, let's take the recruitment point first. If you look at our demographics, you'll have heard on the media, last year net migration was 450,000. But what the media don't say, and in the same year, 500,000 people retired early. So our labour supply net has not increased over this last year. It's the same as it was a year before that. And so therefore, when it comes to recruitment, there's a little bit of slack in the labour market, not much. Vacancies have dropped to about 900,000 from 1.2 million. There are some good people looking. If you're recruiting, do it now, because you won't get them in 18 months. Or if you're looking in 18 months' time, they're going to be more expensive. I can't emphasize that more. The constraint on our growth in 2 years' time will be people saying, this is my customer list, this is my order book, I just cannot get staff.
I think we're seeing that more now, and interacting with business owners, and it's like recruiting the staff, or they're getting the right people in there. And this is is going into a slightly different topic, but in terms of that younger person coming through, what do you think they're looking for in their roles?
What, the young person or the employer?
Well, I suppose looking at it from the young person's perspective, because when we're chatting to them, one of the big benefits is how do we support them in terms of recruitment as the business owner? Because it's like we're going to be educating that client on the technology, trying to get them involved in how to, like sales in private healthcare is a big topic. So what do you see happening for those younger people in the workforce, and like what are they looking to do? Because we're getting a lot of people in the physio market who are not going into the NHS and looking for opportunities in the private sector.
Yeah, this is such a good question. What you're looking at in youngsters, it's called Gen Alpha and Gen Z. Gen Z are under 30. Gen Alpha are the 16-year-olds, so they're just coming into the market. And if we take Gen Alpha, they are very different from any other generation. And the biggest difference is that they haven't had the opportunity to socialize because they've been locked down. So they've learnt off a screen rather than learnt from the playground. And the evidence so far is that they are not that good face to face with people, but they are brilliant with technology. So a Gen Alpha employee will actually say, so what technology are you using here? Because that's what I'm really interested in. And I guess this is relevant to you because you effectively sell technology. So Gen Alpha will be looking for the employer with the best kit. They won't necessarily be good person to person. That's what we're discovering. There'll be some who are, but on average, they're techie savvy, but uncomfortable face to face. Gen Zers are a bit better. They're in their 20s. The Gen Zers will actually be interested in the green credentials of the employer because they're very much into the environment. That's what the evidence is. In either case, your clients, I'm sure, will employ for one thing, and that's attitude. For example, I met Caitlin half an hour ago, and she, for me, is one of those people that any employer would employ because she's got the attitude that works and she knows how to engage with people. So you chose a good intern there.
Yeah.
So that's people, but the other thing is that because the labour market is going to get so tight, the only way a small company is going to be able to grow is by getting more productivity out of existing people. So that's using AI and using equipment. It's not, well, it's nice to have. My view, it's absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. Full stop. The British economy's productivity has been appalling over the last 12 years because companies have not invested in equipment because they say, well, it's a bit uncertain if we spend, I don't know, 80 grand on this, we might get enough volume to, whereas if we've got 2 physios, we can always get rid of them, you know, if it's not working out. From now on, invest in kit.
Yeah, it's an interesting message because albeit like it's been a very strange last 4 years.
Yeah.
And there's been so many big things that have happened in the world, and it does seem to be really uncertain. However, we're seeing massive growth with where we're going, but also for these businesses. So it's a bit of a conundrum in a way where the public perception, the media is kind of quite a negative attitude, and then but we're seeing growth. Our customers are seeing growth. So it's a bit of an unusual setup of things. So talk to me about the media and the role that they play in this.
I dismay. My wife says to me, will you stop shouting? I said, this is complete rubbish that's being written by this journalist. The British media isn't interested in a good news story. They like misery and they peddle it. And the other problem we have is social media, where people, you know, they see something and they post it, repost it, and the original thing is inaccurate. The thing that's really getting to me right now is that if Labour win, your taxes are going to go up. I don't care who wins, your taxes will go up because we've got so many old people that we need to pay pensions for and keep fit. And it's just one of the facts of life. The idea that in Britain taxes can go down over the next few years is a lie. It doesn't matter who the government is. If they say they can do it, they're only going to do it if they borrow more money. So I feel very, very strongly that the British are probably going to vote in the next few days based on a misunderstanding of where we're at. For example, and I had this debate with so many people, of course, Labour always busts the economy. Wrong. Oh, businesses always do better under a Tory government. The evidence does not support that view. In fact, if you want to look, apart from that middle Thatcher year, where things did go well when higher rates of tax came down, the average growth in real incomes is better under a Labour administration since the war than a Conservative administration. And I'm not a socialist. I'm not pushing any particular line. I'm just giving the facts there.
Yeah, but that is interesting, isn't it? Because that is the common conception.
It is.
Simplistically, it is. Right, if you are in business, Conservative is the way to go.
Yep. And the evidence doesn't support that. I mean, the fact is that's what people think, and that clouds how they view data. And if someone like me comes along and says the data says you're wrong, of course, they don't want to, they get very Trumpish. Well, false news. Well, I don't know where that data comes. I've done all the research on this because for me, voting is important. And it might affect how your viewers view me, but for the first time in my life, I've already voted. I've voted Labour. And that is because I'm voting for one thing, and that's what I call competence. And I think Starmer, yes, he's boring. Boris wasn't boring, he was just useless as a leader. Starmer is boring, but I think he'll be a very thorough. He'll run a team, and Reeves, his chancellor, is one of the few chancellors we'll have who actually understands economics.
So what do you see the impact that all the suggestions on? You never always read again what's in the media of things. Is it's going to be Labour, quite convincing win? Where are you at with that?
I think it will be a convincing win. And if you actually look at that, business, or if you look at big business, they're all backing Labour. Small business are too busy running their business to be politicking. But what business wants more than anything is line of sight. They want stability. That's more important than lower interest rates. And I think we are going to get that stability with a Labour government. I wouldn't want their majority to be massive, because you do need an opposition. However, the Conservatives have done themselves absolutely no favours. The actual administration of the UK, particularly since 2016, has been dire. And there's no other way of looking at it.
Yeah, no, it's certainly been a little bit odd.
That's a very British way. It's a little bit odd.
But there's so many massive things. Like for us, Brexit is massive. We buy in foreign currency, so it has a huge impact. And that was a really challenging thing. We're not even going to get into exports to different countries, imports. It's still in no way sorted, and it gives us a lot of challenges and our customers challenges when we're engaging with Ireland and other international countries. But again, there's been so many big events on things, whether it's Brexit, COVID, wars going on. Like, I know you're not going to forecast what's going to happen on a global scale in terms of that, but what do you see in terms of that stability piece? How do you see it being in the next few years for people? Because that uncertainty is what, it can stress me out as a business owner and also for our clients. What's your advice around that?
Well, let's just go back a little bit, and I want the people who are viewing this to think of their business right now. And I want them to imagine that the chief exec of that business, the head honcho, has changed 5 times in 7 years. Okay? Just think of that, your business. So you, equivalent, have changed 5 times in 7 years. The question would be, how would that business be doing? And anyone with a brain say it will be lucky to have survived. That's Britain. That is Britain.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is a...
Okay, so that's the first point.
Yeah.
The second point then, if you look at a big business and the CEO has changed 5 times in 7 years, then look at the departmental heads and assume the average time in post for a departmental head was 8 months. How would that be doing? We know the answer. That's Britain since 2019. Since 2019, the average time in post for a minister has been 8 months.
Yeah, so nothing's going to get done.
Nothing has got done, so we are now got 5 years where things will get done. And if you're interested in the politics, it's not this election, it's the next election, which is the big turning point. Because in 5 years' time, I do believe the public finances will be in a stronger position. And that's a point at which Labour might begin to do some of the things that a Labour government might wish to do in terms of public spending. But they cannot do much until then. We've got to get growth. If we can get growth just to 2%, that means 2% growth means government revenues come in at around 6% because inflation is going to run at 3 to 4. And that will transform the budgets for the NHS, for example, in 2 years' time. So we're all set to have a good time. But, and this is important, Rachel Reeves has stated, I've actually copied it, she recognises that the growth in the economy isn't created by government. Government can get in the way of growth, but it can't create it. She recognises that 60% of our GDP is produced by businesses that employ less than 200 people. And she has in her head that if government spends £1 on capital spend, they estimate the private sector will spend £2 to £3 in addition. And that is based on very, very good analysis from various countries. It's exactly what's happened in America in the last 3 years under Biden. Biden spent $5 trillion on the green economy, and the private sector has spent somewhere around 18.
Yeah, no, that is really interesting. It's like, yeah, the impact of what happens in the States obviously has massive impacts globally. And like, how do you see, we've got the election coming up in America, what do you see the impact of that being?
Well, it looks right now as if it could be Trump. If it is Trump, the first thing that will happen is the dollar will drop. Historically, whenever Republicans win, the dollar goes weak. And there's very good reason why the dollar will drop this time, because if he comes in and if he puts 60% tariffs on all Chinese products and 10% tariffs on European imports to America, their inflation rate's going to rise. And it would be a really stupid thing to do, but it's Trump. He does stupid things. So, yeah, Trump is actually the big source of instability for the global system. I mean, if he gets in, then Putin's going to say, right, I've got a mate in the White House. And in any case, Putin's got something on Trump. I don't know what it is, but I've got a mate in the White House. He won't support Ukraine. So Ukraine might well have to cede that land to the Russians. At which point she in China goes, Trump's not going to do anything if we take Taiwan. So it could be a real mess, but it's something that you and I can't control. So forget about it. Worry about what you can fix, not what you can't.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point, because it's very easy to get distracted and
Absolutely.
be listening to things and hear. So what would your advice be then for people, whether it is business owners, I want this piece to be helpful for everyone, like what would your advice be?
Well, my advice, when people say to me, Roger, I've got a bit of spare cash, they're people who run their own business. We've got a bit of spare cash, where should I put it? And I always say, look, the principles of investment is to, first of all, have a very clear insight into the organization or whatever it is you're proposing to put money in. I mean, really understand it. Don't take it from some stockbroker. Really understand it. And if you can exert any influence on how that investment performs, then that's good too. So if you think about it, the thing to invest before you put it anywhere else is in your own business, because that's the thing that's the thing you control. There was a chap who said to me, well, Roger, I've got $500,000 spare, I don't know what to put, I don't know whether to go in proper. I said, what about your business? Well, I hadn't thought of that. I said, well, take a look. You probably will get a much better return putting $500,000 into your own business than into someone else's.
Is it medical equipment? Does he need some of that?
It wasn't actually, no, but I'm sure it applies. Well, it applies to any. Look, an SME owner knows there's a direct line between how much they invest now and how much goes in their back pocket 3-5 years out. If you want your back pocket to have a fatter wallet in it, spend the money now.
And in terms of that, I think it's great advice, and it's really helpful for me to think about it as we're expanding as we are. How can you safeguard doing that in a safe way of doing it? Because it's great to invest, but then keeping your overheads on top of those things. What things should people consider on the more sensible, cautious side, whatever you want to say about that?
Well, I still come back to the most expensive thing for business over the next few years is going to be people. They're going to be expensive because they're scarce. So if you want to grow your business, and everyone does, then you've got to think, how can I grow this business with the same number of people? And that's about technology. So getting more clients through per day with the same staff, because the procedure has been automated to some extent. It's the only way it's going to happen.
Great, yeah, no, well, that's encouraging for me and encouraging for our clients, because I think you never quite know where things are going. AI has been a massive impact, and we're still understanding where that may fit. But I really appreciate your time today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
It's been great, and it's going to be interesting to see how everything turns out in the next few months.
Well, I just want to conclude, we are going into a period of stable growth. We won't get growth at 2.5% because we haven't invested enough as a nation. But SMEs are the bedrock of growth. They will drive it. They see a government that's competent and stable. Happy days.
Great way to end. Roger, thank you very much for coming in, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.